The galaxy was wide, filled with countless stars, worlds, and species. For thousands of years, great empires and civilizations had risen, fought wars, made alliances, and shaped the balance of power in the endless void. Humanity, in comparison, was young. Their homeworld, Earth, was only a small blue planet on the edge of known space. Yet in recent centuries, humans had grown quickly. They built ships that could cross the stars, they colonized planets, and finally, their name was whispered in the halls of alien powers. Now came the true test. The Aelirian Empire, one of the most powerful nations in the galaxy, had invited a human delegation to their capital world. It was said the Aelirians were ancient, proud, and bound by traditions older than human civilization itself. To be recognized by them meant humanity would be accepted as more than wanderers. It meant they would be seen as equals. Among the human delegation was Captain Elias Kane. He was not the oldest officer, nor the most famous, but he had been chosen carefully. Kane had a reputation for calmness even in the face of chaos. He had fought in battles, seen friends die, and yet he carried himself with unshakable resolve. When diplomats argued about who should stand before the Illyrian throne, the leaders of Earth had chosen him. Not for his rank, not for his politics, but for his steady heart. The human ships descended into the shining atmosphere of Illyria Prime. Kane looked out of the viewport as towers of crystal and steel reached for the heavens. The alien world glowed with rivers of light, as if the stars themselves had been pulled down to the surface. He felt a weight in his chest, not fear, but awe. "This is it," whispered one of the diplomats beside him. "The moment we prove we belong among them." Kane nodded but said nothing. Words were not his strength. Presence was. The landing platform was filled with guards in silver armor, their eyes hidden behind helms that shone like mirrors. The humans stepped down the ramp, small compared to the towering Illyrians. Their hosts were taller, slimmer, with skin that gleamed faintly like polished stone. They moved with elegance, every gesture sharp and graceful like a dance. At the far end of the platform stood a group of nobles. And in the center of them, under banners of white and gold, stood Princess Celira, heir to the Aelirian throne. Kane had been briefed. Do not look too long. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not forget that to the Aelirians, respect was shown in silence and lowered eyes. The rules were strict, but when his gaze fell upon Celira, something happened. She was unlike any being he had ever seen. Her features seemed carved from light itself, her eyes like deep pools of silver. Around her head floated a crown of energy, a subtle shimmer that marked her royal bloodline. Every alien present lowered their heads as she stepped forward, every alien except him. Kane looked at her. Not quickly, not with arrogance, but with a steady, direct gaze. His dark human eyes met hers without wavering. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze. The nobles tensed. The guards shifted. To meet the princess's eyes so openly was unheard of. It was a challenge, a breach of their sacred traditions. And yet Celira did not turn away. She looked back at him. Her voice was soft but carried through the air like a bell. "Why are you looking at me so deeply, human?" Gasps ran through the gathered crowd. Nobles whispered. To question a foreigner like this was already unusual, but the princess's tone, curious, almost fascinated, was stranger still. Kane did not bow his head. He did not break the stare. "In my people's ways," he said slowly, his voice even, "to look into another's eyes is to show respect. It means I see you as an equal. It means I will not lie." The words spread like ripples through the assembly. Some nobles hissed in anger. One stepped forward, his face twisted with outrage. "This is disrespect. He dares to defy our customs in front of the throne?" But Celira raised her hand, silencing him. Her gaze never left Kane. "Equal," she repeated, as if testing the word. Few had ever spoken to her in such a way. Few had ever dared. And fewer still had made her wonder if perhaps there was more than arrogance in it. The delegation was led into the palace. The humans followed the Illyrians through vast halls of light and crystal. Every wall glowed faintly, carved with patterns that seemed alive. Statues of past rulers lined the corridors, their cold stone eyes forever looking downward. But Kane noticed something. As they walked, Celira's gaze often flicked toward him. Curious, puzzled, as if she could not forget his eyes. Later, in the great chamber where the treaty was to be discussed, the humans sat opposite the nobles. Long speeches began, filled with layered phrases and ceremonial words. The diplomats struggled to keep up, their voices careful, afraid of making a mistake. Kane said nothing, only observed, but he felt it again, the weight of her eyes. The princess was watching him, not the other humans. Not the treaty. Him. That evening, when the ceremonies ended, Kane found himself walking in the palace gardens. Stars shone above, reflected in the silver pools and glowing flowers. The air smelled sweet, strange, alive, and then he heard a voice behind him. "You do not look away." "Why?" He turned. Princess Scifi stood there, her guards at a distance, silent as statues. "It is not in me to look away," Kane said. "Where I come from, we face the storm. We face the enemy. We face each other. If I lower my eyes, it is because I am defeated." Her silver gaze softened, but her words carried a quiet challenge. "Do you not fear insulting us? Do you not fear punishment?" Kane thought of the wars humanity had survived, of Earth rising from ashes again and again. He thought of his friends, of loss, of endurance. He shook his head. Fear doesn't change truth. For a long time, the princess said nothing. Then, almost to herself, she whispered, "Strange. You are small compared to us, fragile in body, and yet your eyes are not the eyes of prey." Her words lingered in the night air. For the first time in her life, Princess Scifi, heir to the most ancient empire in the stars, felt something she had never known before: amazement at a human. Thus began the first spark. What started as a stare, so simple, so human, was the opening of a story that would shake an empire. The next day in the palace began with ceremony. The Illyrians believed that every important meeting had to start with ritual. The humans stood in silence while long lines of nobles walked into the hall, their robes heavy with gems that sparkled like stars. They bowed to each other, touched their foreheads to the ground, and spoke words of loyalty in their musical tongue. For Kane, the ritual felt endless. He was used to directness. On Earth or in battle, words were simple, fast, and clear. But here every phrase seemed wrapped in hidden meaning. Every gesture carried weight. The humans copied as best as they could. They lowered their heads when expected. They stayed silent when required. But Kane did not bow deeply. He bent his neck only slightly, his gaze still level, still steady. The Illyrians noticed. One noble leaned toward another, whispering with disdain. A third scowled openly. To them, this human's posture was arrogance, an insult to the princess who sat above them on her throne of white crystal. Yet Scifi's eyes never left Kane. She was watching, always watching. When the formal greetings ended, the discussions began. The treaty was brought forward, an agreement of trade, military cooperation, and cultural exchange. The words were long, the details complex, but the heart of the matter was simple. Humanity wanted recognition, and the Illyrians wanted assurance that humans would not bring chaos into their order. As the diplomats debated, one noble suddenly stood. His voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "This is folly," he declared. His name was Lord Varain, a powerful figure among the court. His tall form shimmered with armor-like robes, and his sharp eyes glared at the humans. "These creatures are too wild, too undisciplined. They cannot even respect our customs. Look at this one." He pointed at Kane. "He stares at our princess as though she were his equal. Such insolence cannot be allowed." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Some agreed, some hesitated. The humans stiffened in their seats, unsure if this was the moment negotiations would collapse. But before Kane could respond, Princess Scifi lifted her hand. The chamber fell silent at once. She looked directly at Kane, her voice calm but edged with curiosity. "Tell me, human, why do you continue to meet my eyes when all others look away? Do you not know it is against our ways?" Every noble leaned forward, eager for the answer. Kane stood slowly, his voice low but steady. "I know, your ways are not hidden from me, but among my people, truth is shown in the eyes. If I turn away, it means I fear you. If I look down, it means I yield. I will not fear you, princess, and I will not yield. Not because I mean disrespect, but because I honor you. Where I come from, equals meet as equals." The hall fell into stunned silence. Some nobles gasped in outrage. Others whispered rapidly, their voices sharp and angry. To them, the words were madness. No one dared claim equality with royalty. Lord Varain stepped forward again, his hand trembling with rage. "Blasphemy!" He speaks as though the blood of the eternal line is no greater than the dirt of his world. Punish him, your highness. Show these humans their place. But Celira did not look at Varain. She kept her gaze fixed on Cain. For a long, tense moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, her lips curved into the faintest smile. Strange. Very strange, but perhaps truth does not always wear the same mask in every world. Her words shocked the chamber. Was she defending him? A princess, excusing the insult. The nobles shifted in discomfort. Cain bowed his head slightly, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. Thank you, princess. After the meeting ended, the humans returned to their quarters within the palace. The diplomats were shaken. They argued in whispers, scolding Cain for risking everything with his words. Do you realize what you did? One snapped. You almost destroyed centuries of work in a single breath. But Cain only shrugged. If honesty breaks this alliance, then it was never strong to begin with. The others fell silent. For though they feared the consequences, there was something in Cain's voice that carried a strange weight, something they could not dismiss. That night, as the palace slept, Cain walked again in the gardens. He needed air, space away from the heavy ceremonies. The stars above Illyria seemed brighter than any he had seen before, as though the sky itself was alive, and once again, she found him. Princess Celira appeared among the glowing trees, her steps quiet, her silver robes trailing like streams of light. The guards kept their distance, as always, but she walked close enough that Cain could see her face clearly. You trouble my court, human, she said softly. I speak only what I know, Cain replied. She tilted her head. And do you not fear? You stood before nobles who could end your life with a word, yet you did not tremble. Cain looked at her, the same steady gaze that had started it all. Fear comes, but it does not rule me. My people have faced storms, wars, disasters. We have lost much, but we always stand again. If I bowed to fear, I would not be human. For a long time she was silent. Then she whispered almost to herself. I have lived among warriors all my life. I have seen generals bow and princes kneel. But you do not kneel. You look as though nothing in the stars could make you. Cain's voice was calm. Everything can break, but not everything surrenders. Her silver eyes widened slightly. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Not her teachers, not her guards, not the lords who showered her with praise. For the first time she felt the ground shift beneath the traditions she had always believed unshakable. Perhaps, she said quietly, the galaxy has underestimated your kind. But not everyone in the palace shared her curiosity. In shadowed halls, far from the gardens, Lord Varain gathered with other nobles. Their faces were grim, their voices sharp. These humans are dangerous, Varain hissed. Their arrogance spreads like poison. If the princess continues to defend them, it will stain our empire's honor. Another noble nodded. Then we must act, quietly, before their words root too deep. The conspiracy began to form. Plans were whispered, shadows grew longer, and in the heart of it, Cain and the princess, unaware, continued to walk a path that would change everything. Thus ended the second day of the human delegation. A gaze had turned into words. Words had turned into conflict, and conflict was already shaping into danger. For Princess Celira, the amazement only grew. For Captain Cain, the test was only beginning. The palace of Illyria Prime glowed with beauty by day, but at night it seemed different. The lights that once looked like rivers of stars now cast long shadows in the marble halls. The air felt heavier, filled with whispers. What had begun as a treaty of peace was slowly twisting into something dangerous. Captain Elias Cain sensed it. He had lived long enough to know when danger hid behind polite smiles. Every time the nobles bowed to Princess Celira, he noticed how their eyes flickered, some filled with loyalty, others filled with secret anger. The humans were being watched. The next morning, another round of talks began. The chamber was full once more with Illyrian nobles, their voices smooth and sharp at the same time. The treaty scroll lay on the great table, glowing faintly with symbols. Princess Celira opened the session. Her words were calm, her posture elegant, but her eyes kept searching the hall. It was as if she too could sense the currents of unrest. Lord Varain, however, was bold. He rose from his seat, his robe shimmering with gems, and spoke with a voice that carried to every corner. These humans are reckless, he declared. They speak of equality, but their eyes are full of defiance. Can such creatures be trusted? Will they not break our peace when it suits them? The hall stirred. Some nobles nodded. Others frowned. The humans kept still, but Kane could feel the pressure building. One of the human diplomats tried to speak, but his words were drowned out by Varane's. "Look at their captain." Varane pointed at Kane again, his voice heavy with contempt. "Even now he stares at our princess as if she were his mirror. This is not respect, it is arrogance. If we welcome them, we welcome chaos into our empire." The air grew tense. Guards shifted, hands near their weapons. The humans stiffened, ready for the worst. But before the argument could grow louder, Princess Celira stood. Her voice cut through the noise like silver steel. "Enough." All fell silent. Her gaze swept the chamber, sharp and unyielding. "You mistake courage for insult. You mistake honesty for arrogance. If you cannot see the difference, perhaps the weakness lies not in them, but in us." The chamber was stunned. Few had ever heard the princess speak so firmly against her own nobles. Even Kane was surprised. She had not only defended him, she had challenged her own people's pride. Varane's eyes burned with quiet fury. He bowed stiffly and sat, but the storm in his expression did not fade. That night the storm moved into the shadows. Varane gathered with his allies in a hidden chamber. Their whispers were full of venom. "The princess grows too close to the human," one said. "She risks our traditions, our pride." "She risks the throne," another muttered. Varane's voice was sharp. "Then we cannot allow it. If she will not see the truth, then we must act without her. Let the humans taste fear. Let their courage shatter before they poison us further." A plan was born, a deadly one. Unaware of the plots, Kane walked the palace gardens again. The glowing flowers swayed in the night breeze, and the pools reflected the twin moons above. He found peace there, away from the endless speeches and politics. But he was not alone. Once again, Princess Celira approached, her silver robes trailing behind her like moonlight. The guards remained at a distance, watching silently. "You do not sleep, Captain?" she asked softly. "Sleep is hard when the air is heavy," Kane replied. "Your palace is beautiful, but it hides unrest." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You feel it too?" He nodded. "I've felt it since we arrived. Some of your nobles want us gone. Some want worse." For a moment she looked troubled. "I feared as much. Lord Varane has always been proud, but now his anger burns hotter than before. He sees you as a threat." Kane looked at her steadily. "Then he is not wrong. Sometimes truth is a threat." Her lips curved in a faint smile, though sadness lingered in her eyes. "You speak simply, but your words cut deeply. No wonder they fear you." Their eyes met once more, and in that moment the silence between them was stronger than words. She had spent her life surrounded by bowing heads and careful voices. Kane was different. Direct, unyielding, as if he could see through the walls around her. For the first time, she whispered what she had been thinking since the day they met. "Why are you looking at me so deeply, human?" Kane's reply was calm, steady. "Because I do not see a crown or a throne. I see you. That is the way of my people." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like that. For a heartbeat, the galaxy itself seemed to fade, leaving only his eyes and her amazement. But the moment was broken. From the shadows, a figure moved. Then another. The sound of weapons being drawn cut through the quiet. "Down!" Kane shouted. Bolts of energy flashed through the garden, striking the trees, burning flowers into ash. The guards shouted and rushed forward, but the attackers were already among them. Kane grabbed Celira, pulling her behind a pillar as another blast tore through the air. He felt the heat scorch past his shoulder. The assassins were Illyrian. Their armor was black, their faces hidden. They moved quickly, striking with deadly precision. One aimed directly at the princess. Kane did not think, he moved. He threw himself in front of her, the bolt searing across his side. Pain exploded through his body, but he stayed on his feet, forcing himself between her and the attackers. The guards fought back, but the ambush was fierce. Kane drew his sidearm, the small human weapon glowing in his hand. He fired, his aim steady even through the pain. "One assassin fell, another staggered. Stay behind me," he growled. Celira's eyes widened as she saw blood staining his uniform, but still he stood unyielding, protecting her as if nothing else in the world mattered. The battle raged for long minutes until finally the last assassin fell. The gardens were scorched, the pools shattered, the air thick with smoke. Kane dropped to one knee, breathing hard, his side burning with pain. Yet his hand still gripped his weapon, ready for more. Salira knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she tried to steady him. "You are hurt, badly hurt. Why did you do this? Why throw yourself before me?" His eyes met hers once more, even as blood ran down his side. His voice was hoarse but firm. "Because fear does not rule me. Because no human looks away when someone is in danger." Her silver eyes shone not with fear but with awe. She had seen warriors fight for duty, for power, for honor. But never had she seen someone stand bleeding, broken, and still unyielding. Not for himself, but for her. At that moment, Princess Salira understood something new. This human was not like the others. His strength was not in his body, but in his spirit, and that spirit was something her people had never truly known. As the guards secured the area and carried away the fallen, Salira whispered to herself, almost in disbelief. Fragile in body, but unbreakable in soul, and in her heart, amazement turned into something deeper. Thus the conspiracy had revealed itself. The alliance was no longer just about trade or politics. It was about survival, trust, and the fire that burned within humanity. For Cain, the wound was deep, but the battle was only beginning. For Salira, the amazement was no longer curiosity. It was admiration and perhaps something more. The morning after the attack, the palace was quiet, but a tense energy lingered in every hall. Word of the ambush had spread quickly. Guards were doubled in number. Patrols ran through corridors, and the nobles whispered behind closed doors. Yet despite the tension, life in the palace went on. The Illyrians were proud, and even fear could not make them show weakness. Captain Elias Cain, however, did not rest. His body ached from the wounds he had sustained the previous night. His side throbbed with every step, and his uniform was stained with blood. Yet he moved through the palace halls with the same calm determination as always. Princess Salira met him in the main hall, her eyes shining with concern and something else he could not name. "You should not be walking," she said softly, placing a hand near his arm. "I cannot hide while danger is near," Cain replied. "If the nobles want to continue their plans, I need to know what they are planning." Salira frowned. "Even wounded, you put yourself at risk." Cain's gaze was steady. "That is what humans do. We face the storm, even when it burns us." Her silver eyes widened slightly. "You are unlike anyone I have ever known." They began quietly investigating the night's attack. Cain had noticed small things others missed: the precision of the assassins, the unusual patterns of their movement, and the faint signature of a communication device hidden under their armor. These were not ordinary nobles acting on their own. They were being directed by someone else, someone outside the palace. Salira listened as Cain explained his reasoning. "You see more than most of my people," she said. "Even I could not have guessed the precision of their attack." Cain shrugged. "Humans survive by noticing details others ignore. It is how we have lasted against enemies bigger, stronger, and smarter than ourselves." Her admiration for him deepened. But it was not blind. She knew the danger was far from over. The two of them spent the day moving through the palace in secret, examining corridors, speaking with trusted guards, and studying messages intercepted from the conspirators. They discovered that the nobles plotting against them were not merely disloyal. They were being influenced by an outside power, a rival alien empire seeking to destabilize the Illyrians. Cain's mind worked quickly. "If we act too slowly," he said, "the conspirators will strike again. And next time they may succeed." Salira nodded. "Then we must act. But my people will resist us. They trust tradition more than reason." "That is why I am here," Cain said. "Humans do not follow tradition blindly. We act for what is right, not what is expected." As night fell, the palace prepared for another gathering. This time, Cain insisted they bring evidence of the conspiracy to the council. He had compiled information from the guards, patterns from the assassins' attack, and intercepted messages that proved the outside empire's involvement. The council chamber was full, and the nobles sat stiffly as Salira and Cain entered. Whispers spread quickly, tension rising with each step. Princess Salira addressed the council first. "There is a plot against this palace," she began, her voice firm. "Not by a single noble, but by a group influenced from outside. Their goal is to create chaos, to endanger us and our people." The nobles murmured, some in shock, some in disbelief. Cain stepped forward and laid the evidence on the table, explaining in simple, clear terms what he had discovered. Some of the older nobles scowled. Are you saying a human understands our politics better than we do? One demanded. Cain did not flinch. I am saying that if we do not act, your empire will suffer. I am not better than you, I am an observer. And observers notice truth that those in power may ignore. The room went silent. For a moment it seemed as if the council would reject him. Then Celira stepped forward. He speaks the truth, she said, her voice cutting through the tension. Do you not see what humans are capable of? Courage, honesty, focus. Captain Cain may be of another species, but his eyes see what ours often cannot. It was a dangerous move. To openly defend a human against Illyrian nobles could have backfired. But Celira had made her choice. Enough, she said, raising her hand. We will confront the conspirators together, or we will fall divided. Those who act against this palace will face justice. Those who help will be remembered. The nobles hesitated. But Cain could see their fear now. The realization that humans and Celira together could not be ignored. Over the next hours, Cain and Celira led a small, trusted team through secret corridors, planning their next moves. They discovered the hidden rooms where the conspirators had gathered, the secret communications with the rival empire, and the weapons caches prepared for another attack. At one point, Cain paused, holding his side where the wound still burned. I will continue, he said, shaking off pain. A human does not stop because of injury. We adapt, we endure, and we fight again. Celira's eyes shone with amazement. She had known humans were brave, but this was beyond bravery. It was resilience. It was willpower that seemed unbreakable. You are incredible, she whispered. He smiled faintly, his hand brushing hers for a brief instant. We are not always incredible, but when it matters, we endure. The final confrontation came that night. The conspirators had gathered for a secret meeting in the palace's lower levels, unaware that Cain and Celira had found their hideout. Moving quietly, they entered the chamber. Cain drew a small human weapon, glowing faintly in the dark. Celira followed, her presence commanding, her hand resting lightly on her own weapon. The conspirators looked up, surprised. For a moment no one spoke. Then Lord Varain stepped forward, his face twisted with anger. You dare, he shouted. You humans stand in the presence of Illyrian power. Cain's gaze met his without flinching. I stand in the presence of truth. That is power enough. Celira stepped beside Cain, her voice firm. Those who plot against this palace will answer for their actions. And you, Varain, will see that loyalty is stronger than treachery. The conspirators hesitated. They had expected a palace in chaos, confusion, perhaps even fear. But instead, they faced two beings, one human, one Illyrian, standing together, unwavering, eyes full of determination and honesty. A fight broke out, but Cain and Celira had the advantage. Their team moved with precision, neutralizing the conspirators. Cain's human agility surprised many, and Celira's command inspired the palace guards. In minutes, the threat was contained. Varain and the others were captured, their plots exposed. Cain's wounds had slowed him, but he had fought through them, showing the same endurance he had displayed the night before. After the battle, Celira looked at him, her eyes wide with awe. You are not like anyone I have known. Your courage, your strength. It is beyond what I imagined. Cain smiled faintly, leaning on her for support. This is what humans do. We face danger, we protect others, and we do not give up, even when the odds are against us. She nodded slowly. Your people? They have a spirit my empire has rarely seen. I can feel it. I am amazed by you. In the aftermath, the palace slowly returned to normal. The conspirators were brought to justice, and the threat of the rival empire was revealed. Celira made sure that Cain and the humans were recognized for their bravery. The nobles who had doubted them were silenced, at least for now. But the story of Cain and the human delegation had begun to spread throughout the palace. Whispers of their courage, their honesty, and their resilience filled the corridors, and Celira, for her part, could not forget the steady eyes of the human who had looked at her as an equal, even in the face of danger. As she stood in the garden that night, watching Cain move among the palace guards, she thought to herself, perhaps humanity is not just a new species in the stars. Perhaps they are something greater, something my empire has never truly known. The palace of Illyria Prime was quieter than usual the morning after the conspirators were caught. The halls, once tense with whispers of betrayal, were filled with a cautious peace. The nobles had been forced to reckon with the truth. The humans had not only survived the attack, But they had exposed the conspiracy and protected the princess. Captain Elias Kane walked slowly through the corridors, his side still sore from the previous nights. He moved steadily, calm as always, though every step reminded him of the pain. Humans endured, and Kane had no intention of letting a wound slow him down. Princess Celira met him in the grand hall. Her expression was one of relief and admiration. "You should rest," she said, her hand lightly touching his arm. "Even a human cannot stand forever without pause." "I will rest when the galaxy stops needing me," Kane replied, his usual quiet determination in his tone. "There is still much to do." Celira smiled faintly, but there was a warmth in her eyes that no royal ceremony had ever brought. "Then let us act quickly before others decide to rise against the peace." The first step was addressing the council. Kane and Celira entered the chamber where the nobles had gathered, their eyes wary. Some still carried anger, others hesitation, but all were aware now that they could not ignore the human strength or courage. Celira spoke first. "The conspiracy that threatened our palace and our alliance has been stopped. The leaders of this plot have been captured. The threat from the rival empire is now known, and we are prepared to defend ourselves together." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she gestured toward Kane. "Captain Elias Kane, a human, has been instrumental in uncovering the plot. He has shown courage, honesty, and wisdom that surpasses what many would expect from a newcomer in our empire." The room fell silent. Murmurs rippled through the nobles. Some scowled, but others could not deny the truth in her words. Kane stepped forward, keeping his voice calm and clear. "I do not stand here to boast," he said. "I am one of many humans, but my people have always survived by facing danger with honesty, by protecting those who cannot protect themselves, and by refusing to yield to fear. That is what I have done, and that is what humans do." The chamber was quiet, the weight of his words pressing on every listener. It was a simple truth, yet powerful in its clarity. Outside the council chamber, the palace seemed to breathe with renewed life. The humans were no longer outsiders, they were heroes. Guards who had doubted them now nodded with respect. Servants whispered of human courage, and Princess Celira walked beside Kane, feeling something she had never experienced before: awe and deep trust. For her, the human spirit was unlike anything in Illyrian culture. It was raw, unyielding, and filled with resilience, and Kane, he had embodied it fully. Later, in the quiet of the garden, Celira and Kane walked together. The glowing pools reflected the twin moons. The flowers shimmered in the gentle light, and the palace walls seemed to hold their breaths. "You have changed more than this palace," Celira said softly. "You have changed me." Kane looked at her steadily. "I do not know if I can take credit. I only do what humans do. We face what must be faced. We do not always succeed, but we never stop trying." Her silver eyes met his, filled with admiration. "You met me as no one ever has. You did not look at me with fear or awe or desire. You looked at me as an equal. And because of that, you have made all of this possible." The next days were busy. Kane worked with Celira and the trusted guards to ensure the rival empire's plot was fully dismantled. Messages were sent to the alliance. Nobles who had been corrupted were removed from positions of power, and the palace strengthened its defenses. But it was not only political work that was happening. The human's reputation was growing across Illyria Prime. Soldiers admired their bravery, servants told tales of their endurance, and even the children of nobles whispered about the human who had faced death without fear. Kane noticed it all with quiet humility. Humans were rarely concerned with fame, but he understood the importance of respect and trust. In the stars, these things often mattered more than titles or wealth. One evening, Celira called Kane to the royal balcony. The city below shimmered with lights, and the stars above seemed to watch silently. "You have done more than I could have imagined," she said, her voice soft but clear. "Not just in the battle, not just in exposing the conspiracy, but in showing me what humans truly are." Kane shrugged lightly, his hand brushing the railing. "We are not perfect. We have flaws, weaknesses, but we endure, and sometimes that is enough." Celira turned to look at him, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "You endure, and in doing so you inspire. My people will remember this. They will speak of humanity for generations. Your kind, your eyes, your courage. It will become legend." For Kane, it was a strange honor. Humans rarely sought recognition in alien cultures. but he understood the meaning. Humanity had made its mark. The next council meeting was less tense than the first. The nobles who remained knew the truth. Humanity was not to be dismissed, feared, or underestimated. And Celira had grown stronger, wiser, and more open because of it. She spoke to the council, her voice carrying authority and pride. The humans have shown us what courage and honesty mean. Captain Kane has taught us that strength is not only in arms or in tradition, but in spirit. From this day, humans are not just visitors, they are our allies, our equals, and our teachers in ways we did not expect. The room remained silent for a long moment. Then slowly, one by one, nobles nodded in agreement. The empire had shifted, its old traditions challenged, its eyes opened to the possibilities of cooperation and respect. Later, Kane walked through the palace gardens alone. The wounds on his side were healing, but the memories of the ambush, the battles, and the fear lingered. Yet he felt something stronger now, respect, understanding, and a sense of purpose. Princess Celira joined him once more. "You have done what few could," she said softly. "You have not only saved me, you have saved this palace and perhaps even changed the hearts of my people." Kane looked at her calmly. "I only did what humans do. We fight for those who cannot fight, we endure, and we face what must be faced. That is all." Her gaze held his for a long time. "It is enough. More than enough. I am amazed by you, by your people, and by what you have shown me. Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated humans all along." Kane smiled faintly. "Perhaps. But that is part of what makes humans strong. Others expect weakness, and we show them strength. Others expect fear, and we show courage." Days later, the human delegation prepared to leave Illyria Prime. Ships gleamed under the twin suns, ready to carry them back to their home worlds. Kane stood at the ramp, looking back at the palace that had become more than a mission. It had become a test, a revelation, and a place where humanity had left its mark. Princess Celira approached, her silver eyes shining. "When you return to your people, know this: you have changed my world. You have shown me and my empire the strength of humanity. We will not forget it." Kane bowed his head slightly with quiet respect. "And we will not forget this world. Its people, its courage, and you, Princess. Humanity has learned much here, and I hope we have left something in return." She smiled, the first genuine smile he had seen in her eyes since they met. "You have. More than you know." As the humans boarded their ships, whispers spread across the palace and the city. Tales of the human who faced death without flinching, who stared into the eyes of a princess and inspired her, who endured and fought for truth. These stories would travel far. Humanity had proven itself not just capable, but extraordinary. Captain Kane took one last look at Princess Celira. She returned the gaze, her eyes full of amazement, respect, and trust. And in that moment, a silent promise passed between them. Humanity would not be forgotten, and the galaxy would remember that courage and honesty could shine brighter than tradition or fear. The engines of the human ship roared to life, carrying them into the stars. And as Illyria Prime shrank below, Kane felt a deep satisfaction. Humanity had survived, had endured, and had left its mark among the stars. For the galaxy, it was the beginning of a new chapter. And for Princess Celira, it was the first time she realized that the smallest creatures, when guided by spirit and courage, could change the fate of worlds. Humanity had proven itself, and the stars would never look at them the same way again.